All right, guys. Hello, hello. Everybody, welcome to this live stream, Traditional Tuesday live stream. It's 12 p.m. in California. And I don't know what time is it in your country, but I guess it's evening in Europe and midday in America? Okay, cool. Yes, welcome, welcome. This live stream is about working on your English pronunciation, on my English pronunciation. Yeah, hey everyone. Let me know what country you're watching from. We're just discussing this with Joe, who is going to join me on this webinar. We're discussing the countries where students are from. Okay, yeah. So yeah, let me know which country you're from. Czech Republic, Russia, hello. Yeah, we're starting. Kurdistan, wow. Kazakhstan, Qatar, India, Bangladesh, Japan, Denmark, UK, Syria, Peru, Moldova, Morocco, Venezuela, Mexico, Ukraine. Yeah, we're talking like, we're gonna give some specific examples, but yeah, it's so many countries. Brazil, Salvador, Venezuela. Wow. I'm flattered. This is so cool. People from all over. That is great. Amazing. Well, actually, I have 214 people watching right now. This is pretty cool. Okay, yeah, so the way we're going to structure this is Joe is going to go through various sounds that are very particular for the English language, and we're going to talk about pronouncing them. And then he's going to give me some tasks, and I will try to do them, try to read different words, and he's going to correct me. And it's all going to be live. And Joe is one of our English teachers now. He's listed on LinguaTrip, and you would be able to book classes with him. So I'm really, really excited. He also taught at a couple of our partner schools. He's from Boston. Okay, cool. I think everyone is here. Yeah, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, we're going to be able to stop like every, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes and answer your questions. But please, questions have to be related to the English language, right? I will answer the first question, and then we're gonna go. How to improve my pronunciation if I live in the country where people do not speak English? This is a really common problem, guys, and I've been there. I've spent 25 years of my life in Russia, and a couple of years ago I moved to the States. And well, the best experience for me was, of course, traveling. I managed to travel once a year to an English-speaking country and go to a local language school and talk to native speakers. This is actually the best, and I guess the only way to practice your English in the environment. But if you don't have this opportunity to travel, something like a webinar is great, because you're listening to native speakers, not me, but Joe. You're listening to other people, you know, watching YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to my Instagram, by the way, today I released a post about my favorite YouTube bloggers. I'm going to show you the post. And if you follow me on Instagram, this is the photo. And if you go, if you go below this photo, okay, you're going to manage. If you're going to go below this photo, you're going to see the list of American YouTubers who I love and who have great content, and you can just learn their pronunciation. You can listen how they talk. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to every single YouTuber out there who's producing content that you like, and try to listen to them and try to watch them all the time. Okay, now I'm going to connect Joe. Okay, now you see. Hey,
hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today from Boston.
It's my pleasure.
Yay. So please tell a little about yourself and what we're going to do today.
So I've been teaching English since 2015, and I worked at FLS International and King's Boston. And when I was a teacher at King's, my afternoon class every day was pronunciation. So I taught pronunciation 5 days a week for at least 1 hour for about 8 months. So a big part of my experience was pronunciation teaching. But I've done everything: business English, general English, writing, essay composition, all those things. But pronunciation, I have a lot of experience with.
Nice. I'm really excited because pronunciation is one of the toughest things in the language, especially when you're in your home country, because your teacher is going to speak with the same accent as you because he's from the same country. And this is what happened in my school, for example. Everybody spoke with a Russian accent, and I struggled to learn accent because every day you're surrounded by your accent, so there's no way to learn. And connecting with native speakers like Joe is the best thing to learn the accents. So yeah, we're really excited. I'm really excited.
Me too.
Cool. Okay, let's start the class.
Okay, so some of the most, like you said, when you learn from someone who also has an accent, you're going to copy the way that they speak, and then it's hard to break that habit. So the first thing to think about with pronunciation is that it's like a muscle. It's not like you can just learn logically what your tongue needs to do. You have to practice it over and over again. So it's like going to the gym and working out muscles. Doing it wrong for so long gets your tongue used to that, and it continues to do it that way. So what you need to do is break the habit and then get yourself to practice doing it in a way that might feel unnatural to you because it's a sound that doesn't exist in your language, but you have to force yourself to get through that phase until you can get to a part where it feels natural to speak that way.
Yeah, I can relate, totally can relate to this, because when I tried to mimic American accent, because when I came to the United States for the first time, I was speaking with a British accent. And I keep telling about this situation in Starbucks where I tried to order hot coffee and they gave me cold because in America they say hot. And to me, hot sounded really stupid because in England you would say that, and I learned British accent. And so the first times when I started pronouncing hot, I felt like a clown. I felt that something weird was going on. But then you just, when you keep practicing, yes, it's a muscle. When you keep pronouncing the words in the right way, you just get used to it. So yeah, sorry, I will be interrupting sometimes because
That's fine.
I have examples coming out of my brain. Okay, cool.
So yeah, that's a big thing. Starbucks, the Starbucks line, when you have to give your name, and then that's a good way to test your pronunciation. Because then when you get the cup, it says like something that's totally different.
Yeah.
One of my students in the past, he said his name, which was like iPod, and he got back the cup that said iPad. And it was a big joke in our class. We were always laughing about that because everyone who couldn't pronounce his name just went to the next closest thing, which was iPad. So it was a problem for him, but it's funny for everyone else.
Yeah, that's super funny.
So yeah, some of the biggest problems that I hear with students is the ed ending of regular past tense verbs. So like it's spelled with an ed. So everyone, when they read it from the paper, they just automatically say like watched or smoked, something like that. When really there's very few words that have that extra syllable ending. So that's one of the big things. And there's actually rules for this. There are 3 rules for deciding how to pronounce the ed ending of a verb. So that's one thing that you can learn logically, and then use that rule to decide how to pronounce things in the future. So specifically, the rules are if the verb ends with a D sound or a T sound, then you add that extra syllable. So it would be like wasted, wanted, added, needed. Those are the only ones that have an extra syllable. The other 2 fall into 2 categories. One where the ed sounds like a D sound, and one where the ed sounds like a T sound. So for words like watch, the past tense would be a T sound, like watched. And words like learn, the ed would sound like learned. So that's one thing that you need to practice with your tongue, but also you can learn the rule so that you'll know what it should sound like, even without anybody there to tell you. Once you have this rule in mind, you can use it to pronounce new words.
Is there a rule for T/D in the end? Like learned but watched? Yeah,
so it would be pronounced like a D if the sound right before the end, the last sound of the word, has watched. If it has you have to vibrate your vocal cords. We call this a voiced sound. So it's voiced and unvoiced.
Oh, okay.
So like B to pronounce something that has a B sound, you have to vibrate your vocal cords. So it sounds like this, b, b, b. So that's a B sound. So
something that you probably can sing. No, you cannot sing.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I can't think of a good example of a verb that ends with B, but the other one, it's like the same sound, but there's no action in your vocal cords. So it's P. So p, p. It's just a puff of air. You open your lips and the air comes out. So that's p, p, and b, b. That's the difference between a voiced sound and an unvoiced sound. So if it's unvoiced, like P, then it would be stopped, stopped. So it's an unvoiced P and an unvoiced T together. Pt. Is that difficult? Is that difficult?
No, I'm getting it. I'm still trying to relate this to singing, because learned, you can still like sing it, but like if you say booked, you cannot sing it. So when you can sing it, it's D. When you cannot sing it, so yeah, I'm just trying to think of different. So because rules are tough to memorize, but something like relating to whatever is happening here is easier. And so later when you do this, you can notice, oh my God, I can sing this sound, so I can, so I should tell D, should say the D sound.
Yeah, singing is huge for pronunciation practice.
Oh yeah,
I know there are websites where you can listen and you have to fill in the words, and then once the song is in your head, you can sing it, and it's sort of like you're doing an impression of the original singer. So that's another thing you can do to practice. Listen to like dialogue in movies and TV shows and try to mimic not just the words they say, but the way that they say them. Like there are some really famous actors who have a very unique voice, and it's sort of fun.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite?
One of the most famous is Clint Eastwood in the US. I'm sure you know. He's kind of old now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's famous for being like a tough guy and saying like, you feel lucky, things like that. So that's one person who's fun to do an impression of.
Yeah, so my experience also with singing, with pronunciation, some of my subscribers know that I have been taking singing classes here in San Francisco. And my teacher, he noticed straight away that I was Russian, because he said Russian thing is that you do not open your mouth. And this really changes the way I sing. He says your mouth is always closed. And this is a problem that is an Eastern European problem. And he said you have to look at Italians, how they sing, because Italians sing with their mouth open, and it's easier for them to mimic the American accent. So he said, like, no, open your mouth and don't shut it at all. Just sing ah, and get used to your jaw being really low. So yeah, when you sing in English, try to, like, even, I don't know, listening to Britney Spears, she says words in different ways when she sings because she opens her mouth so wide. So yeah, this is a great practice.
Yeah, so most of the things that you would use for singing practice also apply to pronunciation. So basically it's like breaking those habits where you always speak with your mouth a little bit more closed. You have to like do something that feels unnatural at first to overcome that.
Yeah. Yes.
And one of the other things, now this is not for every language, but a lot of Latin-based languages, so like Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Italian, they have this problem with phantom vowels, because for them, almost all the words in their language begin and end with vowels, but in English, that's not the case. So like Spain, the name of the country, Spain, students from that country and many others could say like España, 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 something like that. But in the spelling in English, there's no vowel there. So that's something you have to work on, getting yourself to stop doing these phantom vowels. So that's like a listening and repeating kind of thing.
Yeah, I also noticed in Italians, because I also study Italian, so I communicate with Italians a lot. They also try to avoid saying the consonant in the beginning of the word, so they would say hotel instead of hotel. Like they would just drop the first letter. Yeah,
and H is silent in a lot of languages, and even in some English words.
And in Italian, I think it's silent. Yeah.
So that's another thing, is not pronouncing English the same way that you would pronounce your language, especially when it's like we share the same word, it's spelled the same, but the pronunciation is totally different. So that's the thing, you have to sort of break your old habits So you see a word that's spelled like something you recognize and you say, oh, that'll be easy. But then when you pronounce it, a native speaker is like, what? I don't understand, something like that.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things is the TH sound.
Oh,
So
yeah.
some languages totally just don't have
Yeah.
this sound at all.
I can
Yeah.
relate.
And even if you get used to it a little bit, there's another curveball that English throws at you, that there's two different TH sounds. So like I said before with the voiced and unvoiced thing, so there's one that's just air coming out, and the other is with some vibration of your vocal cords. So there's two different ones, and we sort of have to teach people which words go this way and which words are voiced and which are unvoiced.
And I remembered our school back in Russia, when they taught us, we just had to sit for like 5 minutes and say the. So we could notice the difference here. Again, the sound, you can sing it. It's the sound, you're stuck. You cannot sing it. So that's, for me, again, that's the difference.
Yeah, so that kind of memorization, I know like a lot of people think it's an old-fashioned way of teaching, but it's actually really useful for pronunciation because, like I said before, it's a muscle memory thing. So you really have to just do the action over and over again. And so that's one of the reasons that pronunciation class is really fun, actually. So when it's a group class, you have maybe 10 people who are like adults in their 20s who are very serious about studying. But for about 45 minutes in class, everyone is just making strange noises and practicing tongue movements. And so it's a really funny class. It puts everyone kind of in a more relaxed setting. But then we try to get that muscle memory practice in. So it seems fun, like we're all just making noises, but actually we're doing it over and over again. And the teacher's telling you like, it sounds better or it doesn't sound better, what you need to do with your tongue to change the sound that's coming out.
Yeah, and the best way, again, why we need to think about all of the rules, because this is the only way you can later notice your mistakes. Because the only way you can learn that is not just by sitting in class every day. Class is for you to realize what things you have to notice, but then you go in and practice, and this is when you have to mark every time you make a mistake and mark it in your head, like, oh, I said that wrong. And there's no need to correct yourself straight away, but then the next time you're saying the same thing, you're like, oh, last time I made a mistake, this time I'm going to say it correctly.
Yeah, so a lot of pronunciation, they say like the teacher can open the door, but you must walk through it. So there's a lot of things that we can teach you, but you still need to practice a lot. So it's like playing a sport or playing music like that. It takes a lot of practice on your own. But
Talk to yourself.
Teacher,
If you don't have a partner, I talk to myself all the time. I imagine that I have somebody who I'm explaining something about, I don't know, my life, my business, and I just talk to imaginary people. I asked my mom once, I was like, do you think it's okay that I talk to myself all the time? She said, if you're talking to yourself, it's fine. But if you're talking to an imaginary person, we have to see a doctor. Like, I'm talking to imaginary people all the time. But I think this is the best practice. Or imagine that you are a part of your favorite TV show. I don't know. I imagine that I'm this character and I'm talking to another character. And I was trying to mimic their accent as well. This is something really useful. Again, if you don't have a partner, imagine this partner and start talking when no one is home, when you're alone, because practice makes perfect. And it's really important when you're practicing your accent.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good way. But if you feel like that's too strange, there are some other ways also to,
of course.
to get something close to a real person without actually knowing someone who's a native speaker. One thing is that there are certain companies that everyone uses in different countries, like Amazon and things like that. And so if you had a problem with this company, you would call your country's like special customer service number, and you would speak in your language so that it would be easier for you. But you could try to start calling call centers like that in English. And that's one big way to test your pronunciation, because these people, they're not teachers or anything like that. They're going to just say, I don't understand you, I'm sorry, and like end the conversation. So it's kind of trial by fire.
It's tough.
It's tough. So I know students at schools that I've worked at in the past, would like be on the phone with customer service and just give up and come to me and say like, can you tell this person what I need? Yeah. So it can be really frustrating, but if you're at a pretty high level, but pronunciation is one of the last things you need to work on, that's one way you can get a real person on the other end.
Yeah, that's a good one, by the way. Yeah, calling call centers. Never done that for practice. Try calling Comcast. Comcast is the internet provider here, and the last time I was on the phone with them, it took me like 1 hour to figure out the problem, even without having problems with understanding. So Comcast.com, customer service.
Yeah, Comcast is really frustrating even for native speakers. So it might be okay to do it for practice, but I don't want to have to do that myself.
Yeah.
So another one is that there are websites where you can get like a language exchange partner. So they want to learn your language and you want to learn theirs. So you just spend like 2 hours talking, 1 hour in your language and then 1 hour in theirs, so that you both get a little bit of practice. So you can learn grammar that way too, but if you're at a high level in grammar, you can just start focusing on pronunciation.
Yeah, I feel these services are like, if you're in the middle, you will talk to guys who would not really correct you because they're not teachers. So I would say if you're like intermediate, I would still talk to a teacher. So like book a Skype class. But if you're higher level, then finding an exchange partner might work. But again, for me, it never worked because our times were always different. So like I found somebody and he says, I cannot chat right now. I can chat in like 2 hours and I'm no longer interested in 2 hours. So yeah, I don't know. It depends on what kind of person you are.
Yeah, and the other thing about getting an actual teacher is that they're like committing themselves to being available at whatever hours are good for you. So like for me, I wake up at like 5:30 every day to teach lessons in Asia sometimes. So a regular person's like, I just want to practice at a time that's convenient for me after work, but a teacher will have more availability for you, considering the time zone difference.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the comments here. There is a really cool question coming from Vasant. He's asking us to pronounce words like Bourneville. I'm gonna text them to you in Telegram right now so you can see them.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna read them straight away. Annabelle. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right because I don't really use those words in real life. Just a moment, it's loading. So the words are Bourneville, Annabelle, Chile, Chronicle, Hydro. The four words.
That's pretty good so far. Yeah.
Okay. So Bourneville, Chile is Chile, right? So if we follow the rules, the country we would read as child, but we do not follow the rules for Chile. We just say Chile.
Oh, actually, if you strictly followed the Spanish pronunciation of the country name, it would be like Chile or Chile.
Chile.
Yeah, so that would be their authentic pronunciation. But as someone in the United States, if you speak a whole sentence with your natural accent and then you change to Chile and you say it with the real accent, it sounds a little strange. So what Americans say is Chile.
Chile.
Chile, yeah.
Okay. And another word for me, I just chatted to my friend and she said there's 100% chance you're going to pronounce this word wrong, and this is for the state Arkansas, right? Because it's spelled like Arkansas with S on the end, but you're going to say Arkansas. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's very strange. So a lot of the states in the US come from Native American language. So I mean, our settlers, my ancestors, we didn't know how to pronounce it either. But we just took it and something that was in a different language and then just pronounced it with English pronunciation, even though it was wrong. So there's actually another state with a very similar name, Kansas, right? So it's exactly the same, except there's an AR in the front, but the whole pronunciation is different.
Yeah.
So that's a weird sort of situation. Like long ago in the past, pronunciation developed in strange ways, sort of accidentally. People were misspeaking and no one corrected them and they just continued for years and years. So yeah, it's Arkansas and Kansas.
Okay.
Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah. Just remember that. Yeah, it's the only way.
Yeah, basically, because there's no rule for US states because they're so random.
Yeah, I would, and for other countries, like when I came to the UK first, I was in a town called Marlborough, but they would pronounce it Marlborough just for the reason, I don't know, there was no reason because they're British. And there was the city called Reading. And if you read it according to rules, it's just like reading, just like the word to read in the continuous form, but they would pronounce it Reading. And there is no rule. You just have to know. And that's so weird.
Yeah, so I'm here in Boston where it was one of the first colonies. So we have all these British names. We have half Native American names and strange British names. So everything is really hard to pronounce here. We have a Reading too.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have a ton of British names like that.
Oh, wow, okay. Wow, that's interesting. Cool,
And
okay.
so did you want me to talk about Bournville, Annabelle, and Chronicle too?
Yeah, if there is anything particular about those words, then yes.
Yeah, so Bournville, that ville, V-I-L-L-E, that comes from like an old word that meant sort of like village. And that's the end of a place name, like a city or town could have that name. And it's always just ville. People from the south of the US might say Vol, like Bournville. But the normal common pronunciation across the US would be just Bournville.
Ville. Yeah, I think Russians would say Ville. I don't know. Ville, okay.
Yeah, so that's another case with a silent letter, that E at the end. And then Annabelle, I think that was a horror movie that just came out.
Yeah.
That one, that's just a name, that's a proper noun, so it doesn't follow the other pronunciation rules. Normally Bell would be B-E-L-L, but this one having an E at the end, it's just silent because it's a name.
And what about, oh yeah, let's finish that one. And I have another very interesting word. Yeah.
And so the last one was Chronicle. And this one is totally different. It's like the same kind of ending as comfortable or vegetable. So it's like A-B-L-E or I-C-L-E, or like icicle, popsicle. It has an E on the end, but that E only tells you that it changes the pronunciation of the words, the letters before that. So it doesn't actually have any value in its own. It's like the difference between M-A-N, which would be man, right?
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So M-A-N would be man, but if I add an E, so it's M-A-N-E, now it's mane, like a lion's mane. So sometimes E comes at the end of a word just to change the pronunciation of previous letters. It doesn't have any value.
Okay. Yeah, and the last one would be literally. People ask to pronounce it all the time. Literally, is that correct?
It sounds a little bit British, but it's correct, yeah.
What is the American way?
Literally.
Oh, literally. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I keep saying salmon instead of salmon. And
oh yeah, that's another big silent
British
letter.
American. Okay. Literally. Okay.
But
come again with the literally.
Oh, the literally.
Literally.
The difference that I hear is that when you say it, it's literally. You have 3 syllables. Literally.
Yeah.
When I say it, it's 4. Literally.
Yeah, there is another. Yeah, literally. Okay, we're learning American here. Okay. Yeah, and some people ask, what is the whole point of learning the American accent? I would say there are different cases. There are cases when you don't need to lose your native accent just because you want to be different. In my case, I have to do a lot of fundraising for a company. Well, I had to do a lot of fundraising a couple of years ago. And what I've noticed is that I'm an international founder in the Silicon Valley, and there is not a lot of trust for my company because I come from a different country and people do not know me. I don't have American education, blah, blah, blah. And when I start speaking with a weird accent, there is even less trust. And I have to ask, and I'm asking people for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and why should they give this money to me if I feel really distant, if they don't really get what I'm saying? That's why I think for me, like, and for all of the founders out here in the Silicon Valley, I feel that this is a huge problem because you need to establish this trust and you need to show local investors that you're local as well, that you're the same culture, that you're not going to run away with their money, that you're going to grow your company. This is number one thing for me, so why I started learning American accent. Second thing, I know many people want to work in entertainment industry, and there are so many people who call me and say, hey, I want to be an actor. The only way you can be a successful actor in the States is to have the American accent, because otherwise, if you come with your local accent, all of the roles that you're going to get are going to will be limited to, you know, playing immigrant from your country. This is thing number 2. And thing number 3, again, just being, I feel that it's important to feel like a local when you live in the country. And when you have a different accent, I don't know, well, America is very international. Many people have different accents, but when the accent is too strong, when it makes, when it creates difficulties when you talk to other people, that might be a little, you know, weird. But let me know in the comments, why would you learn an accent, or why you wouldn't learn an accent. That is also interesting. Well, do you have anything to add, Joe?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of unfortunate that people judge you negatively if they hear an accent, but it is true. Like in the industry that I work in, it's really normal for people to have many different accents, but in other industries, they're just not used to that. So they would be comparing you with someone that speaks exactly the way they do, and it's perfectly clear what they're saying all the time, with someone who they, even if they only had a little bit of trouble understanding you, that's still sort of like a negative mark on your application. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is the reality of the job.
Yeah, it's about trust. It's about feeling that you are similar, you're from the same background, even if you're not. But again, yeah, you should meet our other teacher, Vena. He's from Russia, and he came to the States with an amazing accent, and he's now he's teaching at one of the language schools in LA, and you can never tell he's from Russia. But yeah, this is the kind of commitment you can have for an accent.
That's cool.
Okay, cool. Let's continue.
Also, one last thing I wanted to mention about ways to practice is that this is a new thing that people couldn't do maybe 5 years ago, but it's like something that I thought of to tell students that they could do at home, like Siri or voice to text, whatever kind of smartphone you have, or you can use your computer.
Alexa, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Alexa and Google Home, those are 2 other big ones now.
Yeah.
So even for native speakers, we have to try our best to speak clearly to make sure that, I'm sure you've seen people all over the place like getting angry at Siri because they're saying it over and over again, but she's not getting it. And those are native speakers, so it's like the highest standard of pronunciation. You have to get it totally perfect. So that's one way to check your own pronunciation without being around someone who can help you.
Yeah. I just said Alexa, and Alexa's in the kitchen, and she's like, huh? Because she makes the sound when she hears me. That's so funny. Oh yeah. So I even wanted to make a video how to talk to Alexa if you have an accent in English. This is an amazing way to practice. All right. Do we have anything left, or should we go to the practice part where I read the words?
The last tip that I would give for self-practice was just, I'm not sure if you've heard of, well, yeah, you probably have, the International Phonetic Alphabet, or like the IPA.
Oh yeah, the transcripts for the words. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So like the English alphabet, it has 26 letters, but when you see those letters in a word, it doesn't necessarily tell you what sound that should make. I know in other languages, if you see one letter, you just know exactly what sound that should be. But with English, because it's been through so many changes over the centuries, it's the letters that you see in the word don't necessarily represent the sounds that your mouth should make. So the International Phonetic Alphabet is letters that only apply to one sound. So if you see the symbol, you know exactly what sound to make. And so you can learn this, you can memorize this, and then when you look in the dictionary, next to every word will be an entry that tells you exactly how to pronounce it using the IPA. So you don't need a coach, you already have an idea of what it should sound like, and then you can try something like Siri to see if you're actually hitting that mark.
Yeah, and I also feel that Google Translate does a great job, because if you type in the word in Google, you can press the audio button and they're going to pronounce it for you. So you can compare yourself as well.
Yeah, that's really helpful too. But if you were stuck with just a paper dictionary, then you would be able to use that.
Yeah.
But when I teach my own classes, I don't expect the students to memorize this whole new alphabet, which actually has more symbols, maybe just a few more symbols than the English alphabet. Instead, I just type things out in a way that's like intuitive. It's just using basic sounds that you already know how to pronounce. I break up bigger words into smaller words that are easier to pronounce.
Yeah, that's clever. Cool.
Yeah, so that's about it for my tips for self-practice.
Yeah, yeah, people are asking who's Alexa. Alexa is this yeah, digital home assistant. It's this black thing. I normally use her for timers, like when I cook something, I ask her to count down like half an hour. You can also order things from Amazon, but I don't really use that function. I only use it for timer. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the practical part. Joe's going to give me words that I'm going to read out loud for you, and he's going to correct me. Meanwhile, also, if you have any other words that come up, that come to your mind, and you have concerns about pronouncing them, write them down in comments in the chat, and we're going to get back to them once I finish the practical part.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
I'm just going to share my screen right now.
Perfect.
And
yeah, here we go.
So these are some words that some of them are difficult for Russian speakers, and then others are just difficult for everyone. So why don't you just try to pronounce these? We'll see if we can get you to make a mistake.
Okay, yeah, the first, I know, like two sounds, w and v. It's wavy, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you're good with that one. Yep.
Yeah, vague.
It's good. Yeah,
Is that
good.
right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Fever. It's when you have cold. Fewer. Mace. What is mace?
Oh, mace. Well, two things. One, it's a medieval weapon from like the time when knights and kings rode horses and went into battle. So it's an old weapon. It's like a ball with spikes. And then the more modern definition is it's like a common weapon that many people have. It's like pepper spray. You spray it in someone's eyes if they try to attack you.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Okay, the next one is maze. Thousands. Yeah. These. Thesis.
Okay,
is
so
it thesis or thesis? Okay, thesis.
Okay, so you said it perfectly the first time.
Okay, thesis.
It is thesis. So what I was talking about before with the two types of TH sounds, that's voiced. So it's these.
Yeah,
right?
you can sing it.
These, yeah, that's true. And then the other one is unvoiced. So it's just air. You put your tongue in the right position, and then you just blow air through your teeth. So it's thesis.
Thesis.
Yeah,
thesis.
Yeah, that's good. And then the other thing.
It actually goes all the way here. Thesis.
And the other thing about these two words is that they have both examples of the ways you can pronounce S. So in these, it's like a Z sound.
These.
Well, that's something that you can't tell from looking at spelling. So that's where you need pronunciation practice to tell you which S's are a Z and which S's are like S. So thesis and these, it's the two different S's and the two different TH sounds.
Got it.
Okay. So since those were too easy for you, I'm going to move on to something a little more difficult.
Okay.
So for that WV.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is a tongue twister. So when I was a child, we did this as like a funny sort of game in school. But in pronunciation class, this is a very important thing. So it's easy to pronounce one word correctly. You pronounce the whole thing. And then if you can, we speed it up. Can you pronounce it very quickly?
Okay, so you guys should also try as well. Like Definitely. Everyone who's watching, try with me. Worldwide vowels, wow, weavers with wavy vowels.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So it's
that
good,
was tough.
But it was slow and careful.
It was slow. I know.
Let's see if you can get it as quickly as I'm about to say it. And I'll probably make a mistake now, but let me just try. Worldwide vowels, wow, weavers with wavy vowels.
Oh my God. That was perfect. Okay, worldwide vowels, wow, weavers with wavy vowels. I just added a couple of extra sounds to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this.
So just one mistake, which is pretty good.
Oh, what was the mistake? The extra sound?
Yeah, there was just one extra. It was like weavers with something like that.
Yeah.
But
you know, I have this. Yeah, when I try to record my videos in English, sometimes it just start talking too quickly, and those tongue twisters are so useful because Okay, the next one. Free fleas for all the loyal royalty. Free fleas for all the loyal royalty.
Yeah,
that's easier. Yeah.
So the first one was a problem that native Russian speakers might have. And this one is a problem that students from Asia tend to have, especially Japan and Korea, and sometimes China too. The L and the R, it's for in their languages, it's just one sound, but in English, it's two sounds that we have to keep very separate.
Yeah, I noticed that with Asian students. Okay, the next one is cheap, sheep, shave, shapes in cheat sheets.
Yeah, that's really good. So this one is a problem that Spanish speakers tend to have. Sometimes maybe Italian.
Because they say sh, right?
Yeah, instead of like they would say sheep.
Yeah, instead of cheap.
Instead of
Yeah.
So one thing I like to do in pronunciation class, we take words like this. These are called minimal pairs, like cheap and sheep. They're two words that almost sound exactly the same, but only one sound is different. So we use those to practice so that you say one or the other, and the other person has to tell you, did you say cheap or sheep? So if the other person can't tell the difference, then you're not saying it correctly. Another thing we do, we take like 10 of those words that are all very similar, and we put it on like a telephone dial pad, so that in order to give someone a phone number, you'd have to say like cheap, chip, shape, shave, sheep, shap, and you have to say them all differently. Otherwise, people think it's all the same number.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
Each sound represents a number, and if you don't say it right, they get the wrong number.
Yeah, you should do it in the class. If somebody books a class with you, you should do that. That is a cool task.
Yeah, it's really fun too, because usually it's very difficult in the beginning, so everyone's just making noises and laughing.
Oh, this one I know it. She sells seashells by the seashore. Yeah, we had to do that for the English language contest back when I was like 15. She sells seashells by the seashore.
Yeah. So this one, if you've gotten some practice, it can be pretty easy. But for some people, the SH and the S, to keep those separate is a little bit difficult. So this is a classic tongue twister. Many people have probably seen this one already.
Yeah.
And W is another problem for some speakers. Just some people say "oo," like an "oo" sound instead of a W. So for the perfect English W, your mouth has to sort of open and close, like "wa, wa."
Wa.
So this one is
wa.
How much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Oh my god. How much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah. So this one, it's just really hard to say consonants that close together. And then some people have a problem with wood. So there's a question and an answer. So it goes, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? A woodchuck would chuck as much wood as a woodchuck could if a woodchuck could chuck wood.
Wow.
So as you can see, I get a lot of
so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the last one, and this is a way to practice what we call reduction, where the space between the ending of one word and the beginning of a new one, if it has a sort of soft sound like H, then we just kind of drop the H. So in the very end of this one, these last two words should rhyme with the other parts. So it's fuzzy wuzzy, and this should also sound like wuzzy.
Oh, wuzzy.
Yeah, so
oh yeah, and this is a common rule, right? When you say wuzzy, you don't pronounce he. You don't pronounce H. Okay.
Yep.
Fuzzy wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy wuzzy wasn't very fuzzy wuzzy.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
So using this one, we introduce people to the reduction, which is dropping certain sounds to make it more fluent, to sound more like a native speaker. And like, your accent is pretty good, so I think you could probably say this just like a native speaker. Are you familiar with the East Coast accents like New York and Boston?
No, I cannot tell that. Well, I might tell that this sounds different from California, but I wouldn't be able to tell where the person's from. What is the difference?
Between New York and Boston, it's not very different. It's really a small difference. They say that people speak more quickly here. But if you're an English teacher, you learn to slow that down. One thing, Boston and New York sound kind of British in some ways. So one example, yeah. So if something ends with er, they just say and most
water.
things with r sound, wada.
Oh, you say water? Oh, water.
I
Okay.
mean, the way I really say it is water.
Okay. But
But
what will
that's
people in Boston say?
water, water,
Water. Water. Okay.
and like
Because yeah, this is the funniest word, because when I came to the UK this year with kind of American accent, this water was so funny to me. It sounded so weird. Because in
yeah.
California, we say water.
Mhm. So that's a big difference
Really
between the
different.
British and American accent is that that T in the middle of many words, they pronounce it like a T, but we don't. We pronounce it
Mhm.
like a D.
D, right? Hmm.
So like instead of butter, we say butter.
Hmm. Butter.
But of course, if a
Yeah.
student pronounces it this way, I'm not going to point that out as an issue, because of course it's your choice if you want to have an American accent or a British accent, depending on where you're going to work or study. That's sort of your choice. But if you wanted to change that, I could work with that.
Hmm.
But of course, it's not wrong. It's just different.
Yeah, I also feel that, like, when you take TOEFL exam, for example, which is an American exam, there is no rule that you have to show some particular accent. You just have to be consistent. But at the same time, I know that TOEFL is organized by an American organization, and the people who are checking this exam, who are listening to whatever you're saying in your speaking part, they're probably American. And if you have an American accent, it will be easier for them to understand. So there is a better chance you're gonna score more in this part. That's why I started, like, really started training my American accent for the TOEFL exam, because I knew it's different. On the other hand, IELTS is a British exam, so if you're taking IELTS, then British accent would be a better fit. So if you're in the middle, if you still have like your own local accent, local to your country, and you're choosing, then you need to decide what country you're going to go to, because I feel that, well, in Europe and European countries, people still speak with British accent. They try to learn British accent. But here in America, Canada, it's all American. South America is probably more American than British, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. What's next there? Or we
So
could
this
go
is
to questions if you. Oh, do you want to get a cup of coffee?
yeah. So this is a reduction practice. So can you say that one more time in the way you think a native speaker would say it?
Do you want to get a cup of coffee?
Yeah. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
If we wanted to say it with this East Coast accent that I was talking about before, it would be like this.
Oh, you're tapping. Do you want to get a cuppa? Do you want to get a cup of coffee? Can you say
Yeah.
it?
Do you want to get a cup of coffee?
Do you want to Another tongue twister.
So
Do you want to
this
get
is
a cup of
reduction.
coffee? Mm-hmm.
So instead of do, we just drop the O and merge it with the Y. So it's dia, dia,
Dia. Mm-hmm.
and then want. I know you see this all the time, like want to, have to, got to, could
Yeah. Oh,
have,
yeah.
should have.
Those
Always
contractions.
becomes coulda, woulda, shoulda, wanna,
Yeah.
gotta, getta. So all of those, we American native speakers will do that all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
one part of pronunciation practice is getting yourself to make the right sounds and know what native speakers will say, so that when you hear it, you recognize it as not some new word that sounds like Juana, but do you want to? So
Yeah.
you,
And
you
then,
have to do it backwards, sort of.
yeah. Because when you say, do you want to get a cup of coffee? That might sound a little too formal, maybe, right? When you're talking to friends, you want to be more relaxed. But when you're delivering a TEDx speech, then you would not contract that.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Yeah, wanted to see a couple of questions. If there are any. French is the best language. Okay. I don't speak French. Uh, Turkey. Men sounds like sheep. It's a little different sound. Oh, almond. Oh yeah. So I made this video on my Russian channel, because I felt, well, I have my aunt here in San Francisco. She moved here 20 years ago. She barely speaks Russian, and we picked up some words that I'm pronouncing wrong still in American. And almond was one of the words, because again, I learned the British version of it. Can you pronounce almond?
Almond.
Almond. Okay.
I think you're
By the way,
good.
if you
Sounds
could
good.
switch on your camera instead of the
Yeah.
file, if we're done with that one. Oh, it's more. Okay, cool. Yeah. So almond, right?
Yeah, it sounds right to me.
And what about the salmon? So my aunt, she's from Maryland. So she says salmon.
Mhm.
Some people in California say salmon. So I'm stuck. What
Um, I've
how should
never
I?
known American native speakers to pronounce it salmon. Um, it's people who've never said it out loud before and they just see it spelled. They
Mhm.
think that that L needs to be pronounced. And I know that some
Yeah, but
people,
British people pronounce it. They
right.
say salmon. Salmon.
So it's possible those people are British, but for
Mhm.
American native speakers, it's salmon.
So it's air, right? Salmon.
Yeah.
In
There's no L
California,
sound at all.
they say not air, but salmon. They still do
Yeah.
not pronounce the L, but they say salmon. But I learned salmon from Elena, and she's, as I said, from Maryland, so I sound a little weird in California. There is so many differences in the language that you just have to, you just have to immerse yourself in the language in order to pick them. Because when you practice for like an hour a day, you just miss those small things. But wow, English is so exciting. I feel I get so excited about the amount of accents there are. I was so excited about like Great Britain is such a small country and they have, I don't know what, like 50 accents, and I was not really able to get what a person from the north of England says. In America, I feel it's a little easier, maybe because I've just traveled from California to like New York. I've never been to the states in the middle of America, but I feel that if I travel, that's going to be a lot of pressure on my ears because of all of the differences that they have there.
Hmm. Yeah, there are some big differences, but fortunately, the middle of the country is easier than New York or Boston.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They do have
Okay.
some weird pronunciation things that are very different, but they speak more slowly. So that's one thing that's easier.
Hmm.
And of course, students don't need to master many different regional accents. We just, in pronunciation class, we just want to get you to like a base level so that you can be understood by people from any region of it, like the English speaking world.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm still looking for through your questions, guys. If you have any more questions, men versus men. So men is plural. Man is single.
Oh, so man and
Men,
men?
men. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good one. So man is like an ah sound. Actually, um, it's like apple,
Hmm.
apple, cat, at, man. That's all those are the same, man. But then men is a this we call this a short e sound. So instead of like the e long e sound, it's just eh, eh.
Hmm.
So men. It's a very short sound. Some sounds you can continue doing forever, but eh is a sound that you can only make once with the back of your throat. So
Yeah,
men.
because I feel like my vocal cords, when you say they spread, right? Is that
Yeah.
what's happening there?
Hmm.
Like try
Yeah.
to pronounce and you feel that something is expanding in your throat and you cannot really hold this position. That's why it's
Right.
men. It's
Yeah.
fast and short. But man, you can see the vocal cords are relaxed. That's what I
That's
feel.
right.
I'm not a singing professional, but I feel that they're relaxed and I can sing out loud, man, and it can go on and on and on.
Right.
And this is the difference.
So that's the difference between a long vowel sound and a short vowel sound. So most of the vowels that you're familiar with, they have a long version and a short version. So that's
Mhm.
like a and and I and e. That's another example. So like hit, that's I, I. You can only do that for a short sound, and that is in the
Mhm.
back of your throat. That's right.
Mhm. And heat is something you can sing.
Heat.
Yeah, heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Okay, there are some questions about grammar. I think we'll just pick the questions regarding pronouncing words. Okay. Will you save this broadcast? Yes, it's going to stay on my channel. You will be able to watch it a couple times if you need to watch it more. Um, do I pass TOEFL exam if I speak British English? Of course. As I said, just be consistent. If you chose British language accent for your exam, then if you're using like lorry instead of truck, lorry is the British word for truck, then keep using lorry throughout your exam. Just be consistent, and that's it. How can I understand English when the speaker is talking in an accent? It becomes difficult to understand the words when the speaker is talking fast. How to overcome that? My answer would be, it's just a matter of practice. Like, the more you practice, the more accents you hear, the better you understand. Especially if you come to a language school, for example, there would be so many accents. Like, your teachers will have a great American accent, but your classmates are going to come from different parts of the world. And you will train your ear to understand not only accents that come from different parts of the world, but then you will be able to understand, to tell the difference between accents within America, like American versus Canadian accents. So I think it's just a matter of practice. What would you say, Joe?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So it's practice. It's like what we spoke about before with training your tongue to get used to new movements and then repeat those movements. You have to train your ear to hear things more accurately, and also to associate a sound that this native speaker is making. Maybe you didn't recognize it right away, but associate it with the spelling of a word that you are familiar with, so that in your mind those two are together. Another way to do that without speaking to anyone is watching videos with subtitles. So even if the person is speaking with an accent, you have the written text at the bottom that tells you what they're saying. So even though it might sound unfamiliar, you can check as you're watching to practice linking those two things, the strange new sound and the word that you're familiar with. So it is a practice thing.
Yeah, and also something else that came to my mind, if you are not yet able to tell the difference between accents, that's totally fine, because I wasn't able to tell the difference between British and American accent till I was like upper intermediate level. So when I first came to the UK and my friends were like, oh, did you hear those Americans? They're so loud. And I'm like, I cannot tell any difference. But when I was in the UK for the fourth time, I was watching an American movie, and I had struggle understanding what was said because I was so used to the British accent. It only comes with a certain level of English. So I would say like intermediate/upper intermediate is when you start to notice those differences. And if you do not notice them right now, don't worry, it's gonna come. Just wait a little.
Yeah, definitely. It's not something you need in the first half of your English learning career, right?
Yeah.
You need to focus on grammar and things like that. And then later you can start to think about accent.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. I have one last cool question about pronouncing words from Shruti. Okay, colonel. Colonel? No?
Actually, this is one of those words that was like the British English where it's very strange and it's counterintuitive. It's totally different from what you expect. It's colonel.
Oh, colonel?
Colonel.
Oh, that's why they say Colonel. Who's this guy? KFC. Colonel.
Yeah, Colonel
I don't remember.
Sanders.
Yeah, Colonel Sanders. Oh my God, I didn't know that. I have to write that down because I have to make a video about it.
Okay.
Okay, colonel. Wow, that is so useful. Wow. Okay, the next word from the same comment. I don't really know the meaning. Isthmus. ISTHMUS.
It's really hard to pronounce. That's sort of like jargon. Do you know what I mean by jargon?
Yeah, like.
Yeah, so I'm not even familiar with the meaning of that word, but let me see what I can find. Oh, so
yeah, meanwhile, I can read. Yeah, okay. Oh, you found it?
A narrow strip of land with sea on either side. So it's a very specific thing. So the pronunciation is just isthmus. There's
isthmus?
No TH, because that's one thing. S and TH, when they're right against each other, it's almost impossible, even for native speakers, to pronounce that combination of s and th together. It's really difficult to pronounce. So the pronunciation of this word is just isthmus or isthmus.
Okay, isthmus. Oh, wow. That's a really cool comment. Okay, squirrel, I can do that. Anemone. Anemone? ANEMONE.
This is like sea anemone, right? It's like a starfish.
Are there maybe. Animals the first time I see this word.
Can you spell that one more time?
Sorry. ANEMONE.
Yeah.
Anemone.
So that is an animal from the sea, and the pronunciation is anemone.
Anemone.
Yeah. So it's really difficult to pronounce. It's one of those words that's like vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. So there's a lot of syllables with few letters, and it's difficult.
Mhm.
But it's pretty straightforward. The E is an eh sound, and then the other part is just money, anemone.
Mm-hmm. Anemone.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. And then were a couple more words. Choir, I know. Oh, this word Worcestershire, right? Worcestershire?
yeah.
It's not
So
yeah, it's
another one
again
of
the
the
a name of a town. Yeah.
British
Or like
things.
an area. Yeah.
Yeah. So here in
Worcester.
Massachusetts, we have another city called. It's instead of the Shire part, it's just Worcester. So when new people see this, they say Worcester. That's the
Yeah.
intuitive from reading it. That's what you think. But
Exactly.
after
Exactly.
years and years of people who didn't necessarily read English but spoke English, like throughout history, people just spoke. So if your dad had a
Mhm.
bad accent or he mispronounced a certain word, he would teach you that same mispronunciation, and you taught it to your kids. And so until reading, people didn't know that it was wrong. So that's one of those that's the pronunciation is so old that I don't even know the origin, but it is Worcester and Worcestershire.
Mhm. Wow.
Sauce is
That's
here, the
cool.
city is Worcester.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Thank you so much. I think this was a great class. For me, the main takeaway is that it's not colonel, it's colonel. It's so cool that you keep learning. Like I've been learning English for 22 years now because I started when I was 4. My parents taught me like dog and cat. Wow, that's so cool. Okay, guys. Another takeaway from you is that you can book a class with Joe. The link is below. Please make sure to book it fast because the slots are going to fill up quickly. And yes, I'm going to leave this live stream on the channel. If you like it, we are looking for your likes because this is the only way for us to see if you enjoy this live stream and whether we should do more. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. That was a super useful class. I hope we do more in the future. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for being with us. Like this video, comment if you liked it, and we'll see you on the next live stream, which is next Tuesday, 12 p.m. Bye.
Bye.